Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Poof! Abracadabra. This is Raising Howl. I'm Jeremy Harper. You are you. And we're going to have a guest. Yeah, it's not just going to be me talking to you. We're going to have a guest. Kara Ritchie. We all like Kara. Kara's smart. She understands the lay of the land. And I'm hoping that she'll give me a little insight to what happened during the Arkansas State spring game, which by all accounts, I wasn't there. I'm sorry. Missed it for the first time since 2012. It's not something I wanted to do. I wanted to go there. I wanted to be there. I had things I had to do, though. Anyway, I hope Kara can fill in the blanks for me. I heard it was good. I've heard good things. Good things coming out of Butch Jones and his sort of filling in the gaps with the team. We'll talk to Kara about that. I want to start the show with something I normally wouldn't start out with at this part of the year, simply because it just wasn't really a priority in years past, and that's with men's basketball. By the way, women's basketball recruiting doing very well. We kept a lot of the women that got us to an NCAA title. Now Destiny Rogers is bringing in some more height, more muscle, more scoring. I'm getting on her hype train. I'm on that bandwagon. My good friend Shane Metlin, he made a note. You should check it out. His article is floating around on Twitter. You might call it X. He talks about how a lot of the talent for Sunbelt women's basketball is staying put. Unlike men's basketball, unlike football. Talent in the Sunbelt staying put. It's great. But I want to talk a little bit about the men's program under Ryan Pannone. Remember when Hodgson was hired a couple of years ago? It was right before the spring game, and they invited him to the spring game. He appeared on the field, and he kind of looks like a football player. He's big and burly and bearded and tall, and he comes out there and he grabs the microphone and at halftime. And remember, he challenged Eric Musselman of the U of A. Said, "Come play us a game." Bravado! We loved it. It kind of gave us a good idea of who Brian Hodgson was, right? He'll take all comers. Yeah, and he liked just to build that up. He liked the drama. He liked the theater of college basketball. Never missed a press conference. It was always good with the press. He showed up to events. He was at every football game. Hodgson kind of knew how to play that game. That translated into a nice fat contract at South Florida. Good for Brian Hodgson. That's how the game works. Ryan Pannone is a little different creature. I talked a little bit to the SIDs in the sports department. They're like, yeah, he's busy, man. He's all over the place. And he is. Ryan Pannone has been busy. He's been picking up guys. Picked up a 6'10 Englishman, Judy, I don't know, Diorama? Judy. Picked up Chandler Jackson, a transfer out of Florida State. Played his high school ball in Memphis. Picked up TJ Caldwell, a Texan. He's a transfer from Ole Miss. Matt Heyman, he's from Louisiana. He transferred from Stephen F. Austin. Got Jalen Hampton a Missourian from Missouri State, a couple other guys, some junior JUCO guys that haven't signed yet. I don't know the rules on that. I don't know when JUCOs can sign. But you might have noticed something about that group of people. None of them are Arkansans. That's not unusual, really, for A-State basketball. Let's face it. Historically, at least recently historically, or not, Hodgson, let's not, stay away from Hodgson. Arkansas State hasn't always been the best at recruiting great Arkansas talent. Now, Hodgson, he comes in. First thing he does is he poaches Darian Ford out of Arkansas. Then he poaches Joseph Pinion. He gets Rashad Marshall in. He keeps Avery Felts. Brings in Zane Butler. I mean, in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of Arkansas flavor to root for in effing Bank Arena. That's pretty cool. Is it the reason why we are able to fill effing Bank Arena? I don't know. I think winning had a lot to do with that. Let's face it. That is the primary goal. It's the primary ingredient to filling up the stands. It's winning. We could have a roster that's 100% Arkansans, 100% Jonesboro kids, 100% Northeast Arkansas. And if they're not winning, nobody's going to go. That's just the way it is. I don't blame them. I don't blame us for not showing up to a bad program. Who wants to watch that? But man, we had some pretty good Arkansas guys. Right now, I don't know. I don't know what if Pannone is looking for Arkansas guys. I know he's looking for his guys. That's fine. His primary objective is to win. It's not to elevate Arkansas basketball players. It's not. His primary objective is to win. But man, it'd be nice to get a little Arkansas flavor in there. Because it felt good watching those guys last year. I don't know why, it just does. You just like watching them. There's a couple guys out there that are intriguing. Terrion Burgess, for instance, he's a 6'8" power forward out of Benton. He's not committed right now. There's a 6'8" forward. Jaytron Hayes. He's out of Whitehall. He is committed to Pine Bluff, but a commitment really isn't a commitment anymore. Maybe entice him to come over. I don't know. There are plenty of guys. But no one can determine whether or not they fit into his system. Anyway, I would like to see some Arkansas guys. I like the guys that he's put together so far. I do. They've got some height. They make baskets. That's one of the things that Hodgson, the Red Wolves scored a lot of points, but man, they missed a lot of buckets. They missed a lot of buckets. It was just kind of part of the system, right? High volume. You're gonna make a lot. You're gonna miss a lot. It feels like Pannone is wanting to have a little more consistency with the shot. Will he play as fast as Hodgson? I don't know. They came from the same program. It stands to reason that Pannone will want to play fast, but we'll see. My only guest is emerging from the green room. You know her. Her name's Kara Ritchie. She's probably the smartest person in the A-State universe. You can listen to her on Workday Red Zone on the Ticket from noon until 2 every Monday through Friday. You can also listen to her for pregame for something called Wolf Howls, which literally for years, I thought was Wolf House. You can listen to her and find that from 107.9 K-Fine. Kara Ritchie, how are you doing?
It is spelled WOLF space HOWLS.
Yeah.
Not Wolf House. Wolf Howls. And I'm well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
How about a show that is Wolf House? You know, like a sister show. Like
you don't need. Can't you do another podcast?
Well, do you have a trademark on it? Because I mean, it sounds so
on
similar.
Wolf House. No, I do not have a trademark on Wolf House.
All right. Well, maybe I'll go ahead and file that trademark claim and see what happens.
I'll tell you what. You file that trademark, I'll buy a T-shirt.
Okay, great. I could use the sales. That would be nice.
I will proudly wear a T-shirt that says Wolf House.
So, Kara, I opened the show with a missive about A-State basketball. And I can't believe I'm still interested in A-State basketball this late in the season. Usually by now, I'm done with even thinking about the team or thinking about recruiting or anything resembling college basketball.
There's a wasp in my office. I apologize. I don't know how this happened, but this is not going to work for me.
If you leave it alone, it'll leave you alone.
I don't even know what kind of wasp it is.
There was a wasp in Kara's office. It freaked her out. She has moved offices. Kara, do you want to reveal which office you're sitting in now?
I am sitting in Matt Stoltz's office. This is going to be an ask forgiveness and not permission type of situation because
that he has an enormous mirror in this office.
The mirror came with the office.
Okay. He's not vain.
I'm sorry?
He's not a vain guy. He's not.
No. I can count on 0 fingers the number of times I've walked into Matt Stoltz's office and saw him staring at himself in the mirror.
Because it has to be said that his hair is always pretty damn perfect. I mean, it's never out of place. And he's kind of put together really well. You know, his shirt's always tucked in. He's clean shaven. He looks great. Could you blame the guy for having a mirror in his office?
I mean, he is the voice of the Red Wolves. He is a representative of Arkansas State. He's going to be put together.
He's got to project a certain persona if he wants to be the voice of the Red Wolves. But you're sort of the intellect of the Red Wolves, which is why you're on the show and not Matt Stoltz.
That's why, but I appreciate you trying.
All right, so I was talking a little bit about basketball. I just want to get your 30,000-foot view on that. The recruiting for Pannone hasn't been flashy, but it has been pretty darn good. What do you think of it?
I think that I like the way this team is coming together. I think one of the things that really stands out that we've seen so far is size positionally. Now, there's just in terms of official. I can't remember at this point in time who's signed and who's committed, so I apologize on that. Like in terms of names that we know publicly, really just one player that's 6'10". However, you look at all of the guards that are brought in, and like these are some big guards. These are some rangy guards. Like 6'7" at guard is really good size. And then you look, and stats can be so misleading. And So I think last year, and to look at a different team for a moment, I think last year's A-State women's basketball team taught me a lot about how not to evaluate a team on paper, because on paper there were
impressive.
There were a lot of people that were brought into that team that were averaging like 4 points a game, 3 points a game, and then you're thinking, man, I don't know about this, but the way they fit into the puzzle together was obviously fantastic. We don't know what Pannone's puzzle is going to look like, right? Like we've heard what he said about what he wants in terms of connectors and things like that, and the different positions and terminology he uses for those positions. But it's still, we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's fun because there is already excitement around this program, more so than there's been in a while. So there is an optimism around this team, even if we honestly don't really know at all what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I think one of my points I was making between Hodgson and Pannone, Pannone seems to be the more of the basketball wonk, the X's and O's, seems to have a clear understanding of what he wants. Hodgson was a bit of a showman. I was talking a little bit about how Hodgson in the spring game, his first spring football game, he arrived, got onto the field, and immediately challenged the University of Arkansas to a basketball game just to make a headline or two. He seemed to understand that part of the game. Pannone is more behind the scenes, and it's a little bit of a adjustment for me because with Hodgson, it seemed like a big headline every day.
Are you still calling him Hodgson?
Isn't it Hodgson?
No.
Well, what is it?
The G is silent. It's Hodgson.
Hodgson? I've never heard anybody call him Hodgson. We're going to have to get, listen, I'm going to have to get like Channel 8 on the line. Maybe get some confirmation on that. There's a G in there. It's Hodge, right?
No wonder he was always pissed at you. You called him the wrong name for 2
years. Anyway, I wanted to get listen, this is the first time since 2012 I haven't been able to make it to a spring game. And it really hurt. I like getting on the field. I like taking pictures. I like taking a look at what size we have, some of the new players. I like seeing how the crowd reacts, which is kind of a mixture. I like seeing the coaches in action. You went to the game. Your overall opinion?
It was a good day.
Ooh.
I will tell you, I sat in the press box, and the press box has a tendency to muffle atmosphere.
Yeah.
So because you're in an enclosed place, it's just hard to tell about kind of the spirit, the overall vibe of what goes on because everything is just muted there. So it's hard to really hear the full crowd reaction and even to see the full crowd because you can't see how many people are down there in the lower deck at all. So in terms of that, I can only give you like a half-ass observation.
I'll take half.
Yeah. But I mean, look, it seemed like a good day. It was a day where when you get to a spring game now, you're not doing ones versus ones, twos versus twos, because quite frankly, there's just not enough people left on the roster right now to be able to do that. And then two, also one storyline for A-State spring camp that I really didn't mention much because I didn't think about it until it was all over. It was a super healthy spring camp. Yeah. So when you get to the end of spring, when you're on the very last practice, you're not going to be doing anything out there super crazy. You're not going to have your ones on the field the whole time and run the risk of getting some of those guys hurt when you've just had a really great spring so far. So I just felt like it was a solid day. I think the fans got to see, some of the highlight guys they went to see. There was a touchdown from Jalen Rayner to Corey Rucker, which is like something we're going to see a lot, something we have already seen a lot. There was a couple of defensive plays there for some new guys for everybody to learn about. And then one thing I love about spring games and fall scrimmages, there's always like a spring game superstar, right? Like a guy who is like a redshirt freshman and he might be a little bit lower on the depth chart, but goes out and has a really good game. And Cameron Thomas did that at running back. So I think you got to see, a little bit of everything you would want to see to make a day like that successful. And then for the fans, one of the big things is always after the game, being able to get out on the field, autographs with the players, have their kids take pictures with the players. And I saw a million of those after the game on social media. So you put all that together, and I feel like it was a successful day for Arkansas State.
Yeah, Carrie, you made a good point. I think last year Rucker was on crutches, Noah Smith was on crutches, Jacob Bear was on crutches. Yeah. A couple other guys were just wearing shirts. So, yeah, I heard that too, that everybody seemed really healthy. And I also heard that there didn't seem to be a whole lot of mistakes.
Yeah. As far as the health, I think the only player who did not – there were a couple of green shirts along the way, some guys that here and there had no contact jerseys on. But I think the only guy that maybe didn't finish spring for a health reason was tight end Tyler Little. And that was not a significant thing. It wasn't a break or a tear or anything like that. He just had a knee scope to kind of clean things up there. So he's going to be good to go very soon, but they didn't want him back out on the field. We even saw some guys that missed last season be able to get back out there, and James Reed at safety and Ethan Hassler at defensive end. So that was really good. So one of the first springs that I could remember in a long time that instead of losing guys, you're gaining guys, which was, again, fantastic to see. There is a second part to your question or your statement, and I started talking and I lost track of where I was at and I forgot what that was.
I can't remember. I will ask you this though, because I'm not concerned. I'm intrigued about this quarterback situation. We got Jalen Raynor,
Mhm.
incumbent, coming back. I think we both can admit that at times he wasn't the sharpest as we had seen him last year. There were flashes of brilliance, but there was also sophomore growing pains. You have Josh Flowers, the highly recruited guy, looks every inch the quarterback. He's got the height, he's got the weight on him. He seems like a prototype quarterback. And you get Ethan Crawford, who put 2 touchdowns on us last year when he was playing for Southern Miss with his legs. Not a prolific passer, more of a runner. Did you get a sense of any of these guys as they were out there? Did you feel like any of them were standing out?
I mean, that is Jalen Raynor's offense. There's not a doubt. There's not a question. QB1 is number one, period, full stop. And I agree with you on him needing to take a step forward. You know, he threw 10 interceptions last year, which was more than he threw as a freshman. So that's a number that's going to need to come down, because this is it's such, like, it feels like a Captain Obvious stat that you're going to be more successful the fewer turnovers that you have. But I actually looked at this the other day, and when A-State, when he did not throw an interception last season, A-State was 5-0. When he threw one interception, A-State was 3-3, so a mixed bag. He had 2 games where he threw 2 interceptions. A-State was 0-2. So, you know, again, it's kind of, I bet there's a lot of teams whose stats look just like that, you know, really successful when there are not turnovers. But yet at the same time, I looked it up, so I wanted to state it. And that's a number that has to get better. I think that can get better. One of the things that Raynor said at the end of spring was that one of his big focuses of this spring was just doing a better job of being able to identify what the defense was doing pre-snap. And since it's a new defense, and that defense is doing new looks and doing different coverages and disguising them differently, there were more opportunities for him to evaluate things. And he said, like, he felt like he made progress there in terms of identifying what was going on pre-snap, so that way when the ball is snapped, he can react to it quicker and just do a better job of leading the offense like it needs to be led.
Yeah, it sounds like he's become a real student of the position, Kara. You know, last year there was a lot of spotlight on him. You know, he was going through the Manning camp. You know, I think he was the preseason offensive player of the year or co-player of the year. So there was just a lot of expectations set on him. And I'm wondering if maybe if there's a little less spotlight, he can kind of relax and play a little better. Do you think Ethan Crawford will play a role as sort of a change of pace guy, like a running situation? Or is that just like, he's just a guy to have in your hip line?
Jalen Raynor can run.
Yeah. He didn't always run.
You don't necessarily need a different person in there to run the football. Now, there were times at the beginning of the season last year where it felt like he wasn't running a lot, whether that was you know, a coaching decision, whether that was his decision. I'm honestly not sure. So I am curious if there are more carries for Raynor this year. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure in terms of Crawford and necessarily what the plan will be there. I do think it's interesting that you've got 4 quarterbacks in that room, counting freshman Tyrell Lewis, who is an early enrollee, and all 4 are dual threat quarterbacks. And that's probably what A-State is going to try and stick with moving forward. But it definitely is probably a little bit more easy to game plan when you've got 4 guys with very similar skill sets, as opposed to, you know, a pro style passer and then a dual threat guy. And then, I don't know. So just kind of one mold there, although all, of course, have their different strengths.
Is that kind of funny that, you know, when Jones first came to Jonesboro, it seemed like he really wanted a managerial type quarterback, that 6'4" guy who could stand in the pocket and throw darts towards people and manage the game. And now we have a roster full of guys that can run, that can create his own play, that can freelance a little bit. Is that a sign that maybe Jones is just simply, I don't know, adapting to what he has, or has he gained a new philosophy?
I do think, I don't know to actually answer that question. I do think having a running quarterback makes life a lot easier on the offensive line than having a guy that's going to need time to be back there that you have to protect. In the first couple of years when Jones had James Blackman, who was not a runner, and you had Hatcher, who was also, you know, not a runner, those guys needed time. And the offensive line the first couple of years were shaky. Those guys didn't always get time. I don't know how many hits Blackman took in his career here, but it was a lot. So, you know, if you especially in this day and age of the portal, when it is really tough to hang on to really good offensive linemen and it is really tough to have competitive depth in the trenches, if you can have anybody else on that roster who just helps you overcome not even necessarily a deficiency, but maybe something that is not going to be your biggest strength, then you take it. And if you have a running quarterback, that is going to make life easier on the offensive line.
So speaking of the trenches and the offensive line, it's kind of funny that you can take the transfer portal era,
Sure,
what it is. It's kind of a mess, but it does kind of give you a clue as to where your team's coaching staff thinks the weaknesses are. And you can see where coach is picking up guys. He's picking up a couple offensive linemen. He's picking up a couple defensive linemen. He's picking up a few linebackers. And before all this, I guess before January, I was a little nervous about these positions, but it appears like it's really shoring up.
Yeah. If you look at the portal commitments that you can find, either these young men standing on their own social media that they're committed, or looking at some of the recruiting sites that cover the transfer portal, right now there is one offensive lineman, one wide receiver, a punter / kicker, 2 defensive tackles, and 4 linebackers that have committed from the portal. So yeah. What does that tell us? It tells us that, one, it's not a surprise that they had to go out and get defensive tackles. They ended the spring with 5 interior defensive linemen left on the roster. That's not enough. I do kind of wonder also if they might bring in another defensive end or 2, because there's not a huge number there. Offensive line wise, I guess the numbers in that room are good, but you look and you had a couple of true freshmen or early enrollees, and then 4 redshirt freshmen in there. So there's just some areas where, again, Jones uses that phrase competitive depth over and over and over. And you might have some good competition. You might have some good guys that are vying for ones. You might have some okay depth, but is it competitive depth? And clearly by the positional groups that they're still going out and targeting, there's some areas they want to work on there.
So speaking of the portal, you made a really a good point. I like it when you have the highlighters out. You got the green and the orange and the yellow and the pink, and you kind of make things easy to look at. You made a note that 70 players, what was that? A total of 35 players will be returning to their same team next season. Players from the 2024 All Sun Belt football selections, right? So
Yes.
out of the 140,
Yes.
70 are graduating or out of eligibility. 34 are departing from the portal. 1 is an early NFL departure. I'm assuming that's green from Marshall.
Correct.
And then 35 are coming back. But Arkansas State, we did okay. I mean, we lost some pretty good pieces at offensive line. We lost a couple big guys from the defensive line. But for the most part, the core kind of stuck together, don't you think?
A-State was hurt significantly more this year with graduation than they were the portal. You look at so many guys that were able to do big things for you defensively this year. They're all gone because they're out of eligibility. I mean, there are like 2 snaps returning in the linebacker room.
Yeah.
And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but honestly, not much. But in the whole linebacker room, because everybody's out of eligibility, ultimately that's what you want, right? You want these guys to go through and have their careers at Arkansas State and graduate and move on. So good job to everybody there. Well done. You did it. But there's still a lot of vacancies now on this team. And the portal did cost you a couple starters there in the end. A couple of guys in the secondary left in the winter portal. And then, of course, you had a couple 4 guys in the trenches that left in the spring portal. There are teams certainly that got hit harder, worse, portal-wise. But in terms of graduation, A-State lost a lot. And there's definitely some guys that are going to have to step up. But in terms of the numbers, yeah, that's right. I do find it a little bit more reassuring when it's broken down that way, because if you just go out and say, hey, only 35 guys in the Sun Belt are returning to their same team, it sounds insane. When you add the fact that 70 of those 140 graduated, it makes you feel a little bit better, because again, that's the whole point of it.
So I'm going to let you go so you can fight that wasp.
No thanks.
But
I'm not. I kid you not. I picked up everything from my office I'm going to need this afternoon. I've got my backpack. I've got my notes. I've got my phone, my chargers, my keys, and I shut the door to my office, and it will stay shut until Monday morning at approximately 9:42 a.m.
you don't think he'll be waiting for you on Monday?
I will quit my job.